Hello and welcome to the Wealth Twins podcast, episode number 16. And today we're talking about the things you should never skimp on. Now, when I talk about skimp, I'm not talking only about money. When in terms of skimping, we're talking about in terms of time, in terms of money, and in terms of effort. So, Nicole, given that definition, what is one thing you think that no one should ever skimp on?
I have to go back to the fact that we do call this the Wealth Twins podcast, and we are the Wealth Twins.
Yep.
So I think the first thing that no one should ever skimp on would be their investing in their savings. Because let me tell you something, no one is going to care about your money more than you. And that's why we actually started this podcast and this whole channel in the first place, because we want to make people understand how investing in savings has to play a priority in their life. So I think that would be the first thing I would say you should never skimp on.
Yeah, I think in terms of not just money, but in terms of time, a lot of questions we get about investing is like, oh, I'm starting late. I don't know where to start. And one of the things is that you have to make time in order to start investing. Not only put away money, but put away time. Because you can't hope that it's actually going to happen. You can't hope to save your way to something. You can't hope to invest your way to your goal. You have to make it intentional. And if you don't do it intentionally, then you're going to miss out on a lot of time when it comes to investing. And time is one of the most important things when it comes to investing. That is how you're going to grow your money in the market. It's not only about what you pick, it's how long you're in the market. So if you're just going in terms of hoping and thinking maybe I'll get around to that someday may not happen. Okay? And if we're talking about money when it comes to investing, I know it's hard for people to put away a certain percentage of their paycheck into their 401k or whatever retirement plan that you have. Even if you want to put away money just in your brokerage account for investing purposes, don't skimp on that. Try to make it a way or try to budget your way to a point where you're putting away a good percentage of money so that your future self will thank you for the money you're putting away today. Because, like I'm telling you now, if you skimp on the time and the money you're investing in yourself now, you're going to regret it later on.
You talk about money. The time that you said was really focusing on people who are starting this game late.
Yeah.
I think time goes for people in all range. I'm talking about people in their 20s just starting their careers.
I agree.
People in midlife career that are parents that are busy working, worried about everybody else but themselves. Time waits for no one, and life happens to us all, okay? So not just having time in the market, you have to make time for yourself when it comes to investing in savings, because 10 years goes by just like this. And I don't care if it's from the age 20 to 30, 40 to 50, 60 to 70. 10 years can make a big difference in the market, but it also makes a big difference in the quality of life. And that's why, even if we're not just talking about investing, just savings, because you think you have time, but you really don't. And a lot of people will keep taking your time, but you always have to make time for yourself, especially when it comes to investing in savings, because like Nadia was saying, you have to be able to take care and do something for your future self. What do you think, Nadia? What is something no one should ever skimp on?
Just going by the definition I gave of skimping, I think no one should ever skimp on their actual potential. Okay. So when I think about this, are you putting in as much effort as you can when it comes to your potential? Because at the end of the day, no one knows you're giving your full 100% or not other than you, right? So if you're not doing what you need to do to get to your full potential, the only one you're shortchanging yourself. So I say that no one should ever skimp on what it takes in order for them to reach their full potential. That could mean anywhere from what do you need to do to educate yourself? What do you need to do in order to push yourself to that next level, whether it's to get up earlier or stay up later to make sure you hit that next level? If you're skimping on that, you're doing a lot more damage to yourself than you actually realize. It may be a little bit here and there now, but that adds up over time.
Now, I know what's funny is that I feel like you talking straight to me. I feel like I'm being kind of attacked because
Not at all.
potential, I realize that every one of us, we might have periods of time when we're actually being the best when it comes to our potential. And I know both you and I still have a lot more room to grow and a lot more potential that we still haven't checked in on. But it reminds me of what David Goggin said. If you guys don't know who David Goggins is, he is a big time ultra marathoner, but out of everything, he was a Navy SEAL. Out of everything, I would say he's a motivator and he's a person that changed his life because he realized he has to live up to his potential that he has set for himself. And David Goggins has a great book called,
I think it's You Can't Break Me. I have to look it up. I know I have this book and I have his other one too.
yeah. So, but the thing is with David Goggins, he says your mind is your worst enemy, and humans don't understand what type of potential that they actually can have. And he talks about how our mind has something called a governor, like you would find in a car that stops a car from going as fast as it can. Just like in a car, humans have that same type of governor, which is their mind, that tells you you can't go past a certain point in terms of physical activity, in terms of mental activity. But that's your mind playing tricks on you, and you have to understand that you are in control of your mind. So he pushes his body and his mind to the utmost to see where his potential actually lies. And I don't know if I'll ever get to that level, but that's something that I'm trying to get more comfortable and trying to push myself with that. So, yeah, I agree that you should never skimp, but that's a hard one in terms of execution for me. And I have to be honest, but that is something that I'm constantly trying to work on.
I say the same thing. I think it's a lot easier for you to push to your potential when you're a kid, but as you become an adult and you have a lot more responsibilities, it becomes a lot harder for you to really go full out because you're spreading yourself thin among a lot of different things. But I think it's even more important to do this as you get older because you are really shortchanging yourself. Like I said, if you're skimping, you're shortchanging yourself, especially
Mhm.
when it comes to your potential. So, what do you think another thing someone should look at if they're thinking about never skimping on? If they're like, oh, maybe I can get away with this, what is something you think they should never skimp on?
Well, I would say the next thing would be relationships,
Okay.
right? Now, I'm not just talking about your significant other, I'm talking about your children, your relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with your family, all that. Because relationships, as we know, especially with your significant other, they affect your wealth and your mental health the most. Because the relationships you have around your friends, your family, and everything, those are the people you're spending the most time with outside of yourself. So if you skimp and you don't take care of those people in a way that's beneficial to them and being a light in their life, they can't be a light in your life and give you as much that you need for someone to help you out. So I think you cannot skimp on taking that time out to really connect with them, find the right people. Don't skimp on coming up with who you need to be around. Okay, we spoke about that in another video because if you're lazy with picking your friends, you're going to have some big time detriments later on. So you can't skimp, I should say, on choosing your friends and also who you choose to hang around with. So that's one of the things in terms of relationships for me.
I would agree. I've been looking at a lot of books and reading a lot of books on longevity lately, and you wouldn't believe the impact of having relationships have on your long-term health, especially when you get older. Because as you get older, you're going to have less and less tight relationships with people, but that we're social beings, we're social creatures, human beings. You need relationships. So if you're skimping on the time that you are putting into the relationships that you have, they're just going to die out over time. So if you can pick up old relationships, build new ones, make sure you're not skimping on the time and the effort that you're using in order to build these relationships and making them stronger because they have a bigger impact on your life that you actually believe, that you actually know about. So, and it just helps everyone. Everyone's happier when you have more people in life that bring more joy to you. So invest in those relationships, spend time, spend effort, and you don't have to spend money, especially if they're the right friends who are around you for the right reasons. That's what I think.
And the right friends will actually help you make more money
I
too. So
agree.
that's where we go back to don't skip on who you picking as your friends. You might not be able to pick your family, but you could pick the family members you talk to.
That is
But
true.
don't skimp. It's serious because all family ain't someone that you need to talk to because you got to worry about the energy, and I'm big on that. I would say in terms of what you were saying, not in longevity, is two things that it reminded me of. One would be blue zones. So if you don't know what blue zones are, these are places within the world where people live longer than the average population, the world population. And not only are they living longer, they are in better health, they have more cognitive abilities, they're just in great shape, and there's more centurions in that particular location. When they look at the commonalities of all these blue zones, one of them is community in relationships. And that's why it plays such a big part in these blue zone areas because, like Nadia said, we are social beings and having those relationships are very important to our health and our mental abilities and also just our day-to-day living. Now the second thing would be when people say, well, I can't spend that much time around people because I work so much. This is a reason why Nadia and I talk about how to step back and really do work life balance, and the reason why we talk about financial independence and using money as a tool to give you more freedom to travel and things like that, because we believe you have to have self-care. And if you're over here working so many hours that you're limiting the time that you have to build quality relationships, there's something wrong with that, because we should be not living to work. We should be working to live. And if that's not the case, then there's something wrong with that. And that's something why we're also doing these type of videos, because we want people to understand it doesn't have to be a career go, 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 go at the detriment of your life. Okay. So those are two things that you have to worry about. Don't let your career get in the way with building and maintaining strong relationships.
One of the things I realized when I first retired was that you have to build relationships with people, because it's very lonely if you retire and then everybody else is still working and you don't know what to do with yourself. You have to be able to build new relationships with new people, meet different people that are outside of your comfort zone, so you'll start learning about different people, because that is one of the main things that will stop you from going back to work, because you're like, oh, I can't do anything, I can't function anymore because I don't know, my identity is tied up into this. I do a lot of different community service. I volunteer in different places. I do different sports. I meet a wide range of people now because I'm trying to build those social networks. So
Hmm.
I think, like, I think we touched a lot about relationships. Another thing I wouldn't skimp on, and I think people may get, well, based on our last video about looking poor, one of the
Oh,
things I
I'm
would
starting
not
to get
skimp
trouble.
on one of the things I would not skimp on is shoes. Okay. Now, I will say it's not necessary for you to spend hundreds on a pair of shoes. I've done that, and sometimes those are the shoes that hurt my feet the most. But what I'm saying is, don't spend very little on your shoes, because one of the things that can be very uncomfortable is walking around in shoes that hurt your feet. Nothing worse, nothing is worse than walking around with shoes that hurt your feet. Now, I'm saying this because if you spend money on high quality shoes that will last you a long time, they don't have to be expensive. You can walk around in them, you can do stuff with them. But if your feet are hurting, there's not much you're going to think about other than trying to get out those shoes as fast as you can. What do you think, Cole?
I agree. Like when it comes to that whole video about looking poor, we're mainly talking about don't focus on the labels and trying to get someone else's attention. But when it comes to
Exactly.
high quality things that are going to benefit you, yes, shoes is one of them. Now, I have children. I really don't spend that much money on clothes when it comes to me and when it comes to them. But when it comes to shoes, I have learned my lesson from both the experiences I had with them, because if you're buying cheap shoes and those holes will get in there much quicker, the shoes tend to fall off and they break down much quicker, so that I don't skimp on shoes. Another thing, if we're talking about clothes and how it feels horrible, I don't skip on coats and I don't skip on boots. Okay, I am not a fan of the cold. And if you're dealing with the wrong boots, you will get wet feet and cold feet. And outside of your feet hurting, I think the worst next thing would be wet feet. They are horrible. So with that, I do not skip on boots in terms of shoes, and I don't skip on coats.
Yeah.
Now,
And we're
these
not,
are things you can plan for too. Like we
exactly.
know winter's going to come every year. So you get yourself a good pair of quality boots. They can last for years. So those are things I don't skimp on.
I agree. And like we said, it doesn't have to be expensive. You're looking at quality. Doesn't have to necessarily be price. Sometimes those two are correlated, but sometimes they're not, especially if you can catch something on sale.
Yep,
So
catch the sales if you
catch the
can.
sales.
Yes.
What's another thing you think that people should never skimp on, Nicole?
Health. I
Okay.
do not think, if you can, do not skimp on your health. This
I
goes back
completely
to,
agree.
we have to make life a priority, and life happens to all of us. So whatever we can prevent by doing some maintenance and taking care of and preventing, then we should. So one way in terms of health I don't skimp on is that I take all my doctor's appointments. I do that, and I try to be consistent with that, because I know in my family, because they didn't go to the doctor's appointments or make that a priority, it ended up hurting them later in life. So because of that, I definitely do not skimp on my doctor's appointments. I also don't skimp on my food. Now, Nadia, you want to talk about food or what when it comes to, then I'm linking this towards health as well.
Yeah, I don't skip on the quality of food that I buy, especially when it comes to meats and vegetables and stuff like that. I try to buy organic as much as possible when it's available. And when it comes to meat, I will go for pasture raised. Pasture raised is hard to find. If you can find it, you should definitely buy pasture raised. If you can't find pasture raised, move down to grass fed or organic and then down from there. But if you can, I promise you, you will not go wrong if you don't skimp on the quality of your food, especially when it comes to the stuff that you're putting directly in your body, like meat all the time, like vegetables. The grocery stores are more expensive when it comes to that kind of meat. So maybe you have to go to a butcher or maybe you have to go to a specialty store to get this meat, but I'm telling you, you will not go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to give out tips on how you can get higher quality meat and also don't pay as much for it, one, you have to switch your mindset too.
Yep,
I think that's one thing because if you don't put the high quality food in your body now, you might end up paying more for medication later
I
on in
agree.
the future.
I agree.
And it's much more expensive to pay for medication than it is to pay for food. Two, you can always grow your own food in terms of vegetables. There are indoor gardens you can make, patio gardens. I used to grow some of my own vegetables. It's very easy, it's very rewarding, and also it's a form of exercise. In terms of buying organic meats and stuff, one of our favorite places is Costco, right? And also, you'd be very surprised if you look at Trader Joe's and also Whole Foods, the amount of high quality meat you can get there for lower prices. Now, another tip would be to buy whole things instead of buying the more convenient cut for you packaging. So, like, say, buy a whole organic chicken is much cheaper than buying just chicken thighs or chicken breasts. So, there's different ways to get around it, but there's always ways that you can find to eat more organic products.
Yeah, I think an easy way is the less processed it is, the less it's going to cost you, right? And you can also go to co-ops. I remember like when we were growing up in New York City housing, people had gardens, okay? So they were growing their own food and that was back in the 80s and people are still doing. So
Mhm.
it's not impossible. It just takes a little more effort, but what we're saying is that effort is worth it in the long run.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, when we're talking about saving money and people say that it's more expensive, I don't think people realize, and we've done this with our students, right?
Yeah.
The amount of money that's spent on eating outside and
Mhm.
at the restaurants. If you take a portion of that budget that you're using for outside food, the Grubhub and double counting in terms of buying on Amazon and also going out, getting groceries delivered to you. If you actually looked at that number and you take a percentage out of it, you could replace that with higher quality foods. So you'd be surprised at how much people underestimate how much they're actually spending on eating out.
Yeah. Well, if we're still on health, I would say you shouldn't skimp on your insurance. Okay. I think one of the things that people get confused is that having a high copayment or having high insurance is not going to do them good, especially if they don't get sick. But in the event that you do get sick, you want to make sure you have good coverage, right? So don't skimp on your health insurance. And if you are going to get a lower health insurance, make sure you don't skimp on the other things that are going to keep you healthy so that you don't have to use that insurance. I think this it's just in general insurance when it comes to dental insurance, health insurance, car insurance. That is something or home insurance. Don't skimp on that because when it comes time for you actually needing to use it, you don't want to get caught off guard and say, "Oh, this stuff wasn't covered." That's something
Mhm.
I would never skimp on.
Another thing I would say, not to skimp on, because you're going to feel the effects later on. Don't skimp on construction costs. Don't skimp on repairs to the house, because
I agree.
although it's a quick fix at the beginning, but it's not actually going to repair it.
I
That
agree.
will end up hurting you later on and will cost you a lot more money later on. So the best way to handle those type of things, get more than one bid. Learn some things before you actually go get someone to go in and do it. Do all the research and your due diligence before you get someone to do the construction on your house or to do the repairs, but do not skimp on doing those repairs because it will only hurt you in the long run.
I agree. Don't skip on your research because the amount of time that you spend doing research will save you an unlimited amount of time when it actually comes to actually doing the work. And I think that's anything. You want to measure twice, cut once. That applies to very different things within your life. Okay. Don't skip on the research when it comes to big projects or anything you want to do going forward.
Yeah, you just reminded me going back to don't skimp on things. Don't skimp on your potential in terms of learning, your ability to learn, and your
Hmm.
ability to take care of matters by using your own intellect. So that goes back actually not only onto potential, but also when it comes to investing and saving. So many people give that responsibility over to financial advisors or just anyone because they believe they cannot figure out a way to invest for themselves or save for themselves. Like we said before, No one's going to care about your money more than you, and you are capable enough to do this. So don't sell yourself short and don't skimp on your own potential to learn things. So do your research, learn as much as you can, and then take care of the things that you need to take care of. Because if not, at the end of the day, like I tell my kids all the time, when you take the shortcuts, you're going to end up being the one that gets cut short. So you have to do the job, do the due diligence, and learn all you can in terms of figuring out your money, figuring out your health, figuring out construction costs. All of that goes to learning as much as you can so you can put yourself in the best position to be the best person for yourself in your life. Because at the end of the day, we have to be the ones accountable for it.
Thinking now, I think another thing you should never skimp on is estate planning. I know it's very easy for people to say, oh, I can just do it online. Don't skimp on that. It may cost you a lot now, but if you do the right planning upfront and you pay the upfront cost of having good estate planning, that's going to save you thousands, hundreds of thousands later on when that estate planning actually has to come into play. Some things you have to spend money on, and it will actually save you a lot of money later on. Do you agree, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm actually going through the estate planning process now, and I can tell you it's a percentage of the cost that it would cost us to go to probate or
Yeah,
your family to go to probate. So you should not skimp on that. And on top of that, not only does it saves a headache for your family members, but it also makes it easier for them because everything was set when it was done in a rational timeline rather than based on emotions. So, and also cuts the time that they can get your assets. So don't skip on estate planning. That is something where your money is definitely worthwhile. But it goes back to make sure you don't skip on your research as well. Now, I want to say when it comes to all these things, I really think all these things actually boil down to choices.
I
Because
agree.
really, the only time you're going to skimp on something in terms of time, money, or effort is because you feel like you don't have a choice.
I agree.
And I'm gonna tie this all back to money and managing your money, making money, investing money. Because when you learn how to manage and invest your money and save your money the right way, money becomes a tool. And it's a tool that will give you more choices. So if you feel like we're coming from a place of privilege or not, no, we realize that we did not have choices growing up. And the more we got better with our money and the more we invested our money and the more that we continue to handle our money in a way that we do, we realize that our choices are opening it up. We have choices when it comes to healthcare. We have choices when it comes to food. We have choices when it comes to construction. So if you want the choices and you want to make sure you continue to have choices, especially in retirement, all this comes down to using money as a tool to help you with your health, to help you with your wealth, to help you with your family, and help you with your resources. All of that and all the experiences you can have, it all boils down to choices. So you cannot skimp.
Yeah, I'm glad you touch upon that because I think people don't understand. Like they may think, "Oh, you don't understand my situation." No, we've seen it. We know when you didn't have health insurance and you had to go to the emergency room when you were very sick, right? We understand that. That was one of the main reasons Nicole and I got our money together and made sure that our children didn't have to experience the same thing. If you're in a place where you don't feel like you have a choice where you live, you don't have a choice of where you eat, there's a food desert, anything like that, get your money together, start investing, start saving so you can change your circumstances so you get more choices.
No, and then we have to admit again, this is not just about making more money in terms of income, because as
Yeah,
we said in previous episodes, you can make six figures or more and still live paycheck to paycheck.
exactly.
But again, life happens to us all. Not a part of the sandwich generation, which means we have kids that we're raising, but also taking care of parents as well. There's so many of us in that situation. And a lot of times we're focusing on taking care of others rather than taking care of our own situation as well.
Yep.
If you don't take the time to focus on your own situation, no matter how much money you have, you will find yourself in a position where you don't have the choices you want.
And
Okay.
somebody else is going to make them for you.
So if you want to be in control of the choices, then you
Hmm.
have to learn how to invest your money. You have to learn how to save your money. You have to take this as an important matter. And Nadia and I are so passionate about it. That's why we get out here every week and talk about this stuff, because
Exactly.
we know the difference is in the quality of our life when we were around people that didn't have their money together, did not know about financial literacy, did not know about investing, to where we are now, and a difference that has made in our lives and also our children's lives, and hopefully even our grandchildren and everything else beyond that. It
Yep.
is a difference between night and day.
And we're grateful for it. So if you guys like this type of information, make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. The link is in the description below. Our newsletter is called the Wealth Pack. And just like any other pack, we make sure that no one is left behind.
Yes. And then if you like this video, please let us know. Comment. I would love to know some things that you say you will never skimp on because we made our list, but we definitely know there's more out there. So we will love to hear from you. So please comment, like the video, and if you like this channel, subscribe and share it with someone you care about. We'll talk to you and we'll see you in the next one, guys.